Hey everybody, welcome to your readings for the week. These are the readings for the week ending May 20th. And I recorded the horoscopes with no sweater and it's cold. And I just have to take a minute and put a voice to my frustration of being cold in the middle of May in California, of all places. I'm in the Bay Area, so it can be a little bit chilly, but this is just, I know I'm going to be bitching about it being too hot in just a few weeks. I get it. But in the meantime, you just have to stop being Pollyanna long enough to say, I'm tired of it being cold. It's the middle of May already. Okay. Moving on to the readings this week, it's going to be a pretty big challenge for most of you, and then there's going to be a few of you that are just not involved at all, so that's really cool. But a lot of you are going to be affected by this challenge, specifically because it's the T-square, so it's a pretty major challenge between several planets, 4 planets to be exact, with the moon, of course, playing into that a little bit on Wednesday, making this challenge even more emotional than maybe it was in the first place. So that also creates a little bit more of a difficulty. And all of these planets are on cusps. So each planet is literally influencing 2 different signs at the same time. So we're looking at half. Literally half of the zodiac, 246, there's 12 signs. Half of you are affected, period. Pretty big. Let's get to the good news, though, which is that Mercury's retrograde ends this week. We do kick off the week on Sunday in retrograde. By Monday noon Pacific time, the retrograde is over and we can go on with our lives, hopefully. I'm sure nobody has stopped their lives for the Mercury retrograde. Actually, I just have to say, though, that we do focus a lot on the negative things that occur during a Mercury retrograde. And I've always felt that they're important. They have these negative things have an importance. In a way, they're getting our attention. Just like being irritated that it's still cold in the middle of May is getting my attention in some way. It's taking my focus off of what normally is to expand it out to see what could be, really. And so consequently, I'm having to dig a little bit deeper to find something else to focus my energy on, because clearly basking in warm sunlight is not in the cards right now, right? Which this time of year, really hard to keep me indoors because of it. So obviously I'm being forced indoors for a reason, right? Whether I like it or not is irrelevant. We are not required to like the lesson. We are required to learn the lesson. And that's really the only thing that we were promised, was that we were either going to learn it or not learn it, and it was our choice. So putting that out there, this Mercury retrograde did most definitely provide some pretty hard lessons, and in making the choice to learn them, there was definitely some benefit and some really good changes that took place because of that. So take that for whatever you want to take that for. Let's go ahead and get started on our readings. We have no Aries, so we're going to start with Darcy, as we always do. One of those 6 signs that is going to be affected by this T-square, by this pretty major challenge here. Pardon me. First and foremost, Mercury's retrograde ends on Sunday. Yay. And of course, it's been in Taurus. I'm sure it's been a real pain in your butt, a lot. And that's good. It's also moved very, very, very close to Jupiter, which is coming in by the end of the week, will officially be 0 degrees Taurus. Although being on the cusp of Aries all week, you're going to feel the effects of it. And Jupiter is really what's responsible for this T-square, for this challenge. But Mercury's proximity to Jupiter means that he sort of plays into the challenge a lot this week. Next week, not so much, but a lot this week. Then on Wednesday, the moon moves into conjunction right in the middle of Jupiter and Mercury. So this just emotionally amplifies this challenge and makes it even more of a bigger pain in the ass. So what are we looking at here? Jupiter is responsible for expansion and growth. His focus is on your long-term goals. This is one of those really exciting opportunities where you go, I've always wanted to do this, and now I have kind of the time, or I have the money, or what have you, and I am actually going to finally be able to do this. And then Pluto comes in retrograde, focused on your day-to-day schedule, and says, well, that would be really nice if you even had any time for that at all. Too bad you don't, because you have no power over your schedule. And then Mars influences this. Still focused on that trauma space. We've been talking about Mars pulling our old anger out for months now, literally months now. I mean, I'm over talking about it at this particular point because I'm like, really? Okay, really right now? So this is triggering a lot of other times where you weren't successful, blah, 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 blah. And it starts you rummaging in that excuse bag, looking for a valid excuse that makes sense to others, that takes it out of your hands, and that you can use to, again, not achieve this goal, right? I look at it this way because I was taught to look at it this way after I got out of my own preconceived ideas of what I thought it was supposed to be, that were absolutely dead wrong as usual. Okay. And here's what it comes down to. Okay. Life is always going to be happening. You're always going to be working. You're always going to have something to do. And I used to spend hours upon hours waiting for this thing, that all these things that were supposedly going to fall into place, that were going to free up my time and make it easier for me to focus on that goal. That is never going to happen. Never going to happen. And whether we love the fact that we can perfectly plan everything and there's a time and a place for everything, or whether we don't plan and we fly by the seat of our pants, because let's face it, you and I could go either way, right? It depends on the situation, but we could really go either way, right? It's actually best to be in the middle of that, where you have a plan but you're flexible enough to be able to move things around in case you need to, right? And that is really, in my experience, the best place that you could be right now. Also, if you can't spend huge chunks of time and money on your goals, then put a little bit at a time into it and gradually grow it up. Okay. I know the instant gratification thing is really a big thing, but it also gets in the way. So a little bit at a time, eventually, all of a sudden, you're going to be like, holy crap, I'm going on that vacation, or whatever it is, right? I do see a vacation in your future. I'm just saying, okay, I don't know if your goals have to do with a vacation, but I do see this vacation taking place in your future, okay? As long as you get your nose to the grind and get it done, right? And don't worry about whether or not you're going to be able to take the time off for that. You know damn well you're going to take that time off for that vacation. No, don't even concern your pretty little head over that, okay? Last thing that I have for you this week is okay. I am being shown this man. I've seen this man This is a younger man around you in spirit. And in the very back files of my brain's like, you connected with this man before. Okay, anyways, that doesn't matter. I recognize this man. And he's coming forward, and he's basically saying, okay, first of all, there's two things. He's like, number one, he says, don't lose your heart. Not don't lose heart, don't lose your heart. Meaning, I think there's a situation or somebody around you where he's saying, it's not that he's saying that this isn't a good relationship. What he is saying is that take your time to make sure you know what you're getting into, kind of a thing. The other thing that he's saying is take out the trash. And you know what that means. Obviously, I'm not. I'm actually, it's going to be hilarious if you've got this giant pile of trash in your house. That's not what I'm talking about if you do, okay? What I am referring to is an individual that you know you've needed to cut ties with for a while. And that's what he's saying about take out the trash. Or if this has to do with a relationship, what he's saying is to separate yourself from the BS that happened in those past relationships so that you're not being triggered in this one, if that makes sense, or you can understand that it's a trigger and not the same, right? So let me put it this way. It's difficult to see red flags if that red flag triggers something in you, because you're going to assume it's the exact same thing, and it may not be the exact same thing. So you don't want to jump to conclusions either. So approach it with a clear head. Obviously, I have to let a cat in here. Approach it with a clear head, obviously, but don't freak out, if that makes sense. And don't let the imaginary cat in. There's no cat. Okay. But don't freak out. Okay. There's no reason for that. Enjoy whatever is taking place, but learn from the past. And that's what I have for you, Darcy. I'm going to move on to Kendra. I'm going to take a swig of coffee before I go into this one. Not that it's bad. It's actually very similar to the way it was last week, with the exception of Mercury going direct on Monday. That obviously is a big change from what we were dealing with last week. But last week we did have planets lining up in a pretty major challenge, and we also officially have Jupiter moving into Taurus officially at the end of the week. But on the cusp of Taurus, his influence is still very, very strong here. So I had a couple of things here, and I want you actually to listen to the horoscopes as well as the reading, because I was thinking of you in the horoscopes, just so you know. There's another message in there too. I've already delivered it in the horoscopes. Now I'm going to move on to this part. So as Jupiter is moving into Taurus, he has moved into a T-square, which is a pretty big challenge with Pluto and Mars. On top of that, Mercury's position is very close to, not quite in conjunction with, but very close to Jupiter as it comes out of the retrograde. With that being said, because of the close proximity, he's also involved in this challenge. And then on top of that, because we got to have whipped cream and cherry on top, right? The moon moves into conjunction with Jupiter and Mercury and adds a bit of an emotional element to this challenge. So what exactly are we talking about in terms of this challenge? Jupiter is focused on your long-term goals. Pluto, which is in retrograde, is focused on your day-to-day schedule. So what that means very specifically for Pluto, what that means is that it feels like you have no power over your schedule. You may have made a plan, but that plan is being changed for you constantly the whole time. And in some cases, as fixed signs, we are kind of control freaks in that way. And if it doesn't go the way that we've planned it, it's sort of, it feels like we're not doing our job, or, what have you. I feel like in this case for you, specifically with what you have going on right now, this is more of a lesson to be open, to let things just kind of sort of flow and go in the direction that they are going to go into, without worrying about your time frame, without worrying about this happening or that happening, what have you, right? Just kind of go with the flow and enjoy it. People like you and I are constantly nose to the grind on schedule with something, are uncomfortable with enjoying that. And I feel like maybe at the beginning of the week, it might be a little weird and uncomfortable. By the end of the week, you're just going to be so loving it. You're never going to want to leave. And I feel like that's necessary for you, because this is the opposite of how you normally are. And in order to understand the opposite, is the only way to be able to find the middle of the teeter-totter, the balance of those two things. I do feel also that the change in environment is also going to help with that as well. Like, you will want to relax and be happier in that relaxed state than you are in the I have to schedule everything, or I have to quote unquote control everything. So look at it that way as well. This is also the last week of the sun being in Taurus. Oh yes, the rest of that T-square, of course, it's Mars, still focused on bringing our inner trauma up, still have triggers present. It really feels like we've been going through this for months, and I honestly, we have. I mean, Mars specifically has been focused on inner trauma and that release of inner anger literally since the beginning of the year. Even though he's changed signs, he still hasn't changed focus. And I think that that's interesting, because it says a lot less about what we're doing individually and a lot more about what's going on a world scale. So for you specifically, I do see triggers coming up for you, but it's a lot more dealing with other people's triggers for you, I think. And well, as well as I do, that it depends on the choice that you make. If you choose to handle that in a diplomatic way, you have shown that you are growing and learning in some way. If you choose to handle that in a not so diplomatic way, okay, that means that either you chose to fight with somebody on purpose, or you have not grown and learned that this is what you need to do. So in some cases, it's avoid the traps that emotional traps that you would normally fall into. In other cases, I don't know. To be honest with you, there's a little evil streak in me that sometimes is like, ooh, fresh meat. I need to release some frustration. Let me release it on this person, because they are begging for it right now. I'm not saying it's nice, but we're human beings, and sometimes that's necessary in appropriate circumstances. I'm just going to put it that way. There is a lot of helpful aspects going on, specifically the sun in a grand sextile with Mars. Mars in there again. So these triggers are obviously helping you. You know that the triggers are helping you. We've kind of done this before, as well as Neptune. Neptune is focused on finances, and the sun is where you shine at work. So couple of things. I mean, this is actually, if I'm correct on my timing, this is actually a time where you're not doing a lot of work. You're supposed to be moving. You're supposed to be on the big adventure that your family is going on, which is stressful, but can be fun at the same time. And at the same time, I feel like this is less about you working and more about getting good news about work, knowing that the money is going to be okay, that financially you're going to be okay. So it sort of eliminates that worry again to leave space for fun time, because you need that. You've earned it. I'm not to say you need it. You have earned it, woman. You need to take it. So basically, that's what I have for you this week. And I am moving on to Jeannette. Okay, so craziness. Yeah, just craziness. Which is okay. It's not like the worst thing in the world. No, I'm just kidding. It can be craziness. It really depends on how you look at it. Okay. And if it is a little bit of craziness, well, it's almost over because Mars is not in your sign. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Never mind. Mars has nothing to do with you. No craziness for you. Scratch all of what I said before. There is absolutely no craziness for you because there's really no planets at all in Gemini. That's going to change next week, though, with the beginning of Gemini season. So basically, this week, the sun moves, ends the week 29 degrees in Taurus, so that when we kick off the following week, boom, we are full on in Gemini season. And the crazy, brilliant ideas are just going to fall all over the place, and it's going to be awesome. And then the focus is on your support system. Although the sun, as it does move into closer and closer to your sign, and specifically this weekend, Friday and Saturday, as it moves into conjunction with Gemini, that influence does get stronger and stronger. And the sun actually is lining up in some pretty interesting, a couple of interesting aspects, very helpful aspects to boot. Specifically the sun's grand sextile with Neptune and Mars. Now Mars, you remember all about Mars a couple of months ago. It was really kind of a pain in your rear. Mars continues to be focused on inner trauma, and specifically the release of old anger. And he's been focused on this for a really long time. I mean, this is very unusual, because it really has been months. And I feel like part of the reason why that is a thing right now is because we all just have to let go of all that anger that we're holding on to. We cannot grow as people, as a population, as human beings, as individuals, as a group, as a whole, while we continue to hold on to poison, basically. And that's exactly what's going on. One of the ways that I see this playing out for you is triggers, specific situations that trigger you, but rather than reacting to it, you're choosing a different way. You're choosing to understand it and learn from it and sort of navigate the current situation without the influence of the past baggage, which is awesome and exactly what you need to be doing. There's always going to be triggers that trip us up, but as long as you're doing that more often than you are reacting to it, you're learning rather than reacting to it, you're growing. And we're never going to stop being human. So don't even bother trying, if you know what I mean. And Neptune is all about money. The sun's focus is on career, and Neptune is all about money. Okay. Past fears, past annoyances, past drama should not affect your decisions in your career currently right now. And that's where that energy is moving to. So if you're pulled to go in a specific direction, but you have all this other BS going on, you snip the cord to that BS and pursue the direction, because you're being pulled to do it for a reason, right? So that's one thing that I have for you. The other thing is Friday. Friday is actually kind of cool because there's a new moon, and it is a Taurus Gemini new moon. So it's on the cusp of the two signs when it takes place, which is really kind of cool. And what's even cooler, to add another element to that, is that this is the fifth and the last of 5 different new moons. Every single month has had a new moon that is on the cusp of two signs. So rather than having a single influence, we have a double influence, which is very cool. I think it's very cool. It just makes them even more powerful. And if you think about it, being a Gemini, okay, highly intellectual, you come up with some brilliant ideas, right? The follow through is really the hard part for us intellectuals. We can come up with a million brilliant ideas all day long, but if nothing gets done about them, they really don't go anywhere, right? This Taurus energy behind your brilliant Gemini ideas helps with that follow through. So it sort of gives you some ideas that help you organize your space, your time, your ideas, et cetera, so that you can actually spend more time specifically focused on turning these ideas into goals and turning these goals into realities. So I see a lot of ideas, and I think that what keeps tripping you up is that you're doing these things, but then you move on to the next thing. Oh, I want to do this. And you're not sticking with one thing at a time to fully learn that and move on. And that is the Gemini curse. So you definitely want to be mindful of that for sure, and make sure that that isn't a thing that you continue to struggle with. The other thing that I see coming up around you this week is I see flowers. Um I'm not sure why. It looks like a bouquet of flowers. Um, it's a celebration around you. I'm not sure if it is you or somebody around you. These are not like romantic flowers either. They're all these different colors that you wouldn't normally see in flowers, but I mean, obviously they breed these weird, wacky, wild colors. Like blues and purples and stuff like that. It's more of a, I would say it's more of a celebration, like a birthday celebration or a celebration of moving to the next step of your goals or what have you. And I'm not sure if it's for you or somebody around you, but it's a big deal. I keep being told it's a big deal, which sounds fun. So that's what I have for you, Jeannette. And I am going to move on to Connie. Okay, so things are heating up. And interestingly enough, being on the healing path that we have been on in the past couple of months, this is going to amp things up quite a bit. And while that is frustrating, annoying, unwanted in some ways, sometimes this is what it takes in order to really get us to the point where we're fed up with dealing with things the way that they are and willing to change ourselves in some way. What I'm referring to is that at the end of the week, Mars is officially moving into Taurus. Now you'll feel the effects of that probably most of the week. But officially 0 degrees. Did I say Taurus? I meant Leo. Obviously, it's your sign we're talking about here, moving into Leo. So, and there's 2 things that make this a really, really big challenge. One is that Mars has been focused on inner trauma, and Mars is really all about anger. So, inner anger, inner trauma anger, Mars has been focused on this specific influence all year long. It's like he moved into that influence in January. He has moved into 3 different signs now, but continues to remain in this influence, which I find interesting because it's not something that I've seen before. And I also find interesting because this is sort of the reflection of what's going on in the world right now, is that most people are reacting to their triggers and not responding to the lesson, but how they feel and how everybody else, what everybody else needs to do to fix that for them. And I feel like that's really been amplified lately. The other thing that is frustrating is that Mars comes into your sign in a major challenge. And this is a challenge that started last week and will probably continue for another couple of weeks, unfortunately, because the planets involved don't move really that quickly. So there will be some change as Mercury is a part of this challenge this week, probably not so much next week. Mercury's retrograde ends on Monday, so that is good. We won't really be feeling too much of the retrograde effect in this challenge, but we are in the shadow period. So there is still an element of that as well. With Mars moving into Leo, this focus on releasing inner anger becomes almost your most important job, unfortunately. And this plays out as it's in your face and you can't avoid it, no matter how much you try to hide away and avoid it, you absolutely can't. Which is also frustrating because you're not feeling like you can do what you want to do. And sometimes these lessons come up in such a way to make you feel that way, because what is life? Life is that thing that we have to live, and we don't always get to live it the way we want, no matter what choice we make, because whatever it is that we need to learn is going to be presented to ourselves, to us, whether we like that or not. With Mars in a T-square with Jupiter and Mercury are focused on long-term goals. So I can look at this as specific things that you want to get accomplished, like say around your home. I can look at this as specific things within your relationships that you want to get accomplished. Mercury being involved in that specifically is all about how you communicate what you want. Pluto's influence is over your day-to-day schedule, and Pluto being retrograde really does create this I don't have power over my schedule kind of a feeling. And that is also a problem because it makes you feel like you have no control. And in many cases with your work schedule, you have, control, but you don't have complete control. There is a lot of elements of you not having that control. So this challenge is going to bring up more anger that needs to be healed, specifically around the things that you've been dealing with already. Leo's focus is on self, and the dark moon is influencing that as well in retrograde. So where the dark moon indicates major changes, this influence is coming in and saying, I'm digging my heels in the ground because I refuse to change. So we're literally looking at two sides. We're looking at the side that doesn't want to change, that wants what she wants. And we're looking at the side that is the reality of what happens whether you do the healing or don't do the healing. And the reality is you can't change other people. You have no control over that. You can only change your approach, change your perception, change your mind, change your underwear. It's all you have control over, right? That's what that looks like. I feel like you've been on the verge for the past couple of weeks, and this may be what it takes to push you over the edge of healing. I mean, towards healing. And trust me, when you get pushed over the edge, it's like marshmallows. You land on marshmallows. It's really nice. It's not going to hurt you. Your knee's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. The process is always messy. It always will be messy. It doesn't mean it's not worth it. And it's still a mess if you don't do it anyway. So it really is a catch-22. You got a toothache. You can deal with it until you can't deal with it anymore. And then you have to go to the dentist and get it dealt with anyways. You could have done it 6 months ago. You could wait 6 months until it gets worse. That's always your option, right? I also, one of the best quotes in a TV show that I ever heard was, you can do anything you want as long as you're willing to accept the consequences for that. The other thing that I have for you this week is Mars is in a T-square with the Sun, which is focused on career, and Neptune, which is focused on finances, which is a really good thing to focus your energy on. I sort of see that playing out as one of those difficult appointments having a resolution at some point this week. Like, you're not dealing with the difficultness of it. You're able to move forward on it, if that makes sense, which is also a really good thing. So that is what I have for you this week, Connie. And I'm going to move on to Jenny. Okay. So we have Mars moving into Leo. Isn't that exciting? Mars is going to create some challenges, like right off the bat, too, unfortunately, for two different reasons. The first reason being that Mars influence has been hard on inner trauma for months now, and it has changed signs, but it is not moving out of that specific focus. And so we're looking at the release of anger from things that no longer should be influencing our lives currently right now. So that tends to play out in triggers a lot, specifically triggers around instances that keep coming up that you keep ignoring the healing. That makes sense. We all have those. The other thing is that Mars is coming into your sign at the end of the week although you'll feel it the last few days of the week as it moves closer and closer to the cusp of Leo, officially lands in Leo on Friday. Mars is in a T-square, which is a pretty big challenge, with Pluto, which is focused on your day-to-day schedule, and Pluto is retrograde. So that can often feel like you have no power or control over your own schedule. Everything seems to be moving around it. And in some cases, that can cause some frustrations. There's also the element of I have created this specific time for myself, and some emergency comes up and prevents that in some way, which is very frustrating, of course, also. And then we have Jupiter and Mercury making up the rest of this T-square. Wednesday, the moon is moving into conjunction with the two of them to make this a bigger challenge. You'll feel that a little bit, but you'll start to feel this influence more and more after that. So that is actually a good thing. Mercury and Jupiter are focused on long-term goals. For you, I sort of see this playing out as you have had a lot of changes lately in terms of your career, but do they line up with your long-term goals? I feel like this is coming up a lot lately, and I feel like the reason it keeps coming up is because maybe you need to take the time to revisit what your specific goals are, and whether or not you're on track with them, whether or not you're veering off the path. Because I see more than one goal that has not really been checked in with lately. We'll just put it that way. So that's one aspect of it. The other thing is that I feel like the Mercury retrograde is ending this week, and specifically on Monday, it's over, but we are still in a bit of a shadow period here. And so I feel like there is an element of making sure that you are communicating to those that you need to communicate with in the proper way, specifically around your long-term goals. Like, for instance, if one of these goals means that you have to be away from work that day, because one of your kids has a concert at school or something like that that you really, really have to be at, you have to communicate that as, I am not available that day. You obviously don't have to give a reason or an excuse, right? I am not available that day, right? You don't want to say, okay, I might be available on the weekend or in the afternoon, right? You can say that if you are okay with being available in the afternoon, you just need the morning off. But if you want to take the day off, take the day off, right? And communicate it in a way that there is no way to reinterpret that, right? That is what it is. I am taking this day off. Boom, period, done, mic drop, okay? So that's one thing that, or one way that I feel that is going to play out for you. There is a grand sextile with Mars, the sun, which is focused on career, and as well as Neptune, which is focused on money and income, which is going to be very helpful for you. Because I see this playing out as providing other avenues of money, more avenues of money coming up, because you are letting go of mindsets that are no longer serving you. There's a very specific one where it involves somebody telling you you're never going to be successful. And that one, it's literally hanging on by a thread. You've already determined that you are going to be as successful as you want to be. So when you release this, it's like it opens up all of these opportunities. And it is probably going to put you in a position where you kind of have to choose, and it's difficult, and your heart wants to pull you this way and that way and all these different things, but you survived that already. You will survive that again, trust me. We're learning over here big time that it's the saying I've always said: there is no friends when it involves money, because that always makes the decision so much more difficult. And it's not easy to not make friends with the people that you see every single day, but it's the people that you are walking away from that make that decision difficult. It always is. And the fact that you don't want to disappoint people and things like that, but if those people loved you, they wouldn't stand in your way either, and they would understand that this is the next step in your career growth, period. So that's what I have for you, Jenny. And I am moving on to Linda. Linda, you are so lucky, just lucky, lucky, lucky to be a Virgo right now. So much going on. So much going on for so many signs. Virgo, no. And that's good. Your time will come, okay? Your time will come, but it ain't coming this week. So let's go ahead and celebrate the hell out of that. We do continue to have series influencing the past, because focus is on the past. Mm, this is actually kind of interesting. For you, I feel like this is playing out. I get the words inspiration from the past. So you're using or gathering inspiration from the past in some way in order to reshape something that you're currently doing now, if that makes sense. But it's almost like I'm being shown an antique chair that is getting reupholstered, that's getting a new finish on the wood, that is it's being handled with the things that will not destroy it because of its age, but it's also being given a new, like a modern, almost a modern uplift, right? While continuing to hold on to the tradition. It's hard to explain, but I feel like in a way, this is not just playing out, it is playing out in your career, but I feel like it's playing out in your personal life as well. It's almost like nurturing pain from past pain from relationships, if that makes sense. And in some cases, what's interesting about this is I can give you an example, actually. Between my son and my brother, they had a misunderstanding. We'll just put it that way. And my son was very upset with his uncle and really didn't reach out to talk to him or have a relationship with him afterwards. And my brother tried and tried and tried. And, my son was just like, and then one day my brother just cornered him and said, look, you're either going to be mad at me or you're not going to be mad at me, or you're going to be mad at me forever. Right. And my son thought about it. My son's a Virgo, by the way. My son thought about it and he says, okay, you know what? You're right. It's unfair to be mad at you forever. So I'm not going to be mad at you anymore. Now they're best friends again, providing my brother doesn't do what he did before. Right. So between the two of them, were able to take this bad thing and go, okay, we're going to set it down. We've discussed it. It's over. We're going to move on. We're going to reclaim the relationship that we had, and we're going to allow it to grow into what it's going to grow into. right? Which, if you knew them as the mother and sister of these two together, it can be kind of scary, honestly. The point is, they healed that issue between them, which is amazing for them, and proof that it can be done. And I feel like this is a thing for you as well, to be able to nurture scars, even not necessarily like huge issues within relationships, but also healing on an inner child level of scars with people who are no longer there. And that is healing that has to be done all on your own, if that makes sense, because it has a lot to do with forgiveness in many ways. So that's one thing that I see coming up for you. The other thing I see, I keep being pulled to is, I had it was right there, and then it just, it's like a jumping bean, just jumped in and jumped back out. um Nurturing the way you deal with or handle stupid shit is the only words that I can come up with for that one. um it's the little things, it's always the little things that just set you off, and it's those things that you just wish would go away that people do. um I feel that it's a good opportunity to nurture how you approach those things. um in some cases, there's the black and white, which is, I love my husband, but he does this thing that drives me crazy, and it's been driving me crazy since we got married, however long ago that was, right? We all have those, right? And then you talk to the widow who says, I used to hate that he would do this all the time, and now I miss that sound more than anything, right? And by nurturing that thing that is annoying you, it gives you, in some cases, a reason to love it. Um, because it personalizes it in a different way than you have been personalizing it before. So that's what I have for you, Linda. I'm going to move on to Matalyn. Focus is on the past. We continue to have Ceres influencing Virgo. You're very, very lucky because there is a lot of planet baloney going on, and Virgos are just sitting back going, I don't even need to stir the pot to be entertained by all the crazy that's going on around me right now. That's a good place for Virgos and Sagittarians to be sitting, just saying. Your mom's sitting there with you. While you guys enjoy that, actually, that's kind of a funny visual to see the two of you sitting back and watching the chaos together. I wouldn't put it past you either. Focus is on the past. Ceres continues to influence this. Ceres, with her nurturing influence over the past, is interesting. And I really actually feel for you, that's trying to bring back something that is missing, if that makes sense. Um, your grandma wasn't just your grandma. She was like another mother, and in many cases, the way that she cared for you was very nurturing. She was so good at it. Um, which many of us who weren't her kids were blessed enough to be able to experience that as well. And I really feel that this week you've been missing that, how she made you feel. But yet she's also showing me that you caught a glimpse of it. It's almost like for just a split second you felt that feeling, and then as soon as you recognized it was there, boom, it was gone. That's what happens. It happens a lot. And what I can say is don't question it, just accept and enjoy it when it happens, rather than, oh my God, this is actually happening. Okay, that's where you're severing the connection every time. We all do it. Um, you know, it's never going to be the same, but your grandma is saying that there are ways that you can bring that back, and you can always call on her and she'll be there. It's not the same, but this is you creating that space in a different way and keeping it going. And in some cases, you want to avoid it because it's painful, but it's more painful for you not to do it. In the long run, it's way more painful for you not to do it. This is how you build your traditions with her and keep them going. And it's also, there's an element of providing some of those things for your grandfather. The little things, like making him the food that he likes, the biscuits, because you do such a good job and stuff like that. That's keeping her going, if that makes sense. The other thing that I'm being shown for you is I feel like you're being stubborn about something. I'm just gonna put it out there, okay? Know that, no matter what I say it with love and for your own good. But I really feel like you're being stubborn about something. I don't know what that something is. I don't feel that it's my job to know what that something is. I have to let the cat in. I don't feel that any of that means anything. I'm just going to say you're being stubborn about something and it's only hurting you. Come on. Okay, yes, maybe it could be hurting somebody else, but that's not the point. Okay. The fact that you're doing something that is hurting you on purpose and refusing to stop doing it is not good for you. So I'm going to leave you with, you can make the choice to continue to do that if you so choose to, or you can choose to stop being so stubborn and get out of your own way. Okay? And that's what I have for you, darling. I love you. I am moving on to Theresa. We got nothing in Libra, which is awesome because it's literally like the whole other half of the zodiac is just like full to the brim with planets, and there's like 4 signs and you're one of them sitting down there going, ha ha, it's not me, right? Never laugh too hard, by the way, because you know how karma is. It always comes back to bite you in the butt. Focus for Libra is on the mind, how you think this week. Interestingly enough, the biggest thing that I keep seeing coming up for you is what's your own brain getting in the way? We all have that, where everything is going great and you're like, God, everything is just so good, and then your brain goes, but something's gonna screw it up any minute, right? And that's really what I feel is taking place a lot right now, is just that fear that the shoe's gonna drop, right? Because you've had a lot of stuff happen in your life. I mean, in all honesty, the amount of things that you've gone through would break any other person. You are definitely a pillar of strength. You really are. I hope if you don't feel it, please just believe what I'm saying, okay? Because you are. I don't know if I could have been strong enough for half of what you've been through, specifically in the last few years. So with having all of that, having had taken place, it makes it even more difficult for you to just relax and enjoy that things are great right now. Okay. And when your brain starts to go to that what if place, just simply tell it to shush. Okay. I don't want to talk about that right now. Okay. Let me focus on something pleasant instead. You have the right to do that. The brain works for you, not the other way around, right? Emotional thinking is good when you're thinking with love. Emotional thinking is not good when you're freaking yourself out. You know the difference. You try to avoid the freaking yourself out, but it sneaks in there every now and then. And when it does, you reserve the right to change that at any given time. I'm also being shown that the hardest time to do that actually is when you're driving. Not that you're not focused on your driving, obviously, but because if you're not, at the clients and doing something, you're just sitting there driving. And that's usually a time when your brain wants to just wander and take over for entertainment purposes or what have you, which usually is fine. But when it starts to go to that dark place, it's just, sometimes it gets to the point where it feels like it is attacking you. And that's when you have to put on the brakes and force yourself to think of something else or focus your mind on something else. Sometimes turning on the radio helps with that too, because you start to become focused on the music or whatever is coming out of the radio. Your son just popped in just to remind you. He says, I know things have been a little crazy, but but you're going back to eating the stuff that you shouldn't be eating again. So it's all quick, not as healthy as it should be. And you keep saying, I'm going to get back to my healthy regime soon, and you haven't done it. He's kind of calling you on your BS. I'm just saying. Laughing the whole time. He loves being there, by the way. Not that he didn't love being here, but he loves being there because nobody can get away with anything that he doesn't see. And he thinks that that is just awesome. And there's a little mischievous streak in him that wants to hold it over everybody's head, but that's also against the rules, and he's not going to do that. So, that's what I have for you, Theresa. I'm going to take a little break here really quick and then finish up when I come back. Okay, moving on to Regina. Somebody else is probably really happy right now because there is no planets in Scorpio or Libra. Either one of your signs, everything is pretty much free and clear in terms of planet activity, which is kind of good because it's still a little bit crazy in terms of planet activity for everybody that's not one of those two signs or two other signs. Everybody else is affected. So enjoy it. Focus is still on home. I loved our conversation. I used you in the horoscopes too, in case you haven't noticed or haven't read them yet, but I did use you in the horoscopes because it's a fantastic conversation actually for the end of a Mercury retrograde, or for a retrograde period, because obviously we didn't have the conversation during the end of the Mercury retrograde. And I think lack of communication really is a big issue for a lot of people. A lot of people tend to not say anything because they don't want to rock the boat, because they just want things to remain calm and smooth, and blah blah blah. And if you look at it, it's never calm and smooth. Whether you cause the ripple or not, ripples are happening all over the place. And sacrificing yourself is never a good idea, period, because when it comes down to it, nobody's going to sacrifice themselves for you. Or at least that's how we need to look at it. It is possible. There are individuals out there that will sacrifice themselves for you under the right circumstances, but that's hoping for that is a useless waste of time that leads us nowhere but disappointment. And we don't want disappointment. We want to empower ourselves. This is a time for women, and we are here to empower ourselves and those around us. And especially if we're not feeling empowered in our own environments. So it is scary, really scary to step into that power, but believe me, when you do, and you're a Scorpio to boot, I mean, come on, Regina, come to the dark side. We have cookies. No, seriously. Seriously, though, if you don't stand up for you, who will, when you think about it? By doing that, you might actually create more time to enjoy your house. Be able to clean it, be able to decorate it, be able to just sit in it and go, I am not doing anything. And that's also hard too, because your brain is always like, but you could be doing this and you could be doing that. And what are you doing sitting on your ass? I also tell that voice to shut up too, because there are days where that is my only goal in the whole day, is to sit on my behind all day on the couch doing whatever I want to do, which is usually nothing. I need those days. Fixed signs really need those days, and you're a fixed sign. Being half Scorpio, you're a fixed sign also. But that Libra half loves to be out and about, so I can see where that is a little bit of a struggle. Balance. You got to have a little bit of both. You have to. I feel like you're like me. You need that space to regroup and to unplug, basically, and regroup your energy, replenish your energy. I can ground and bubble all day long, and I do, but I still need that time to rejuvenate, for lack of a better word. The other thing that I'm being shown for you is I see a dog. Okay. I don't know why I'm seeing the dog. It's like this dog is just walking up to you and wagging the tail, just happy. Everything is happy. It's a white dog, kind of fluffy. I'm gonna go with one of two things. One, when I go somewhere, the animals tell me everything I need to know about the people that I am about to interact with. Okay. And I know you have that ability. I know you have that ability. So I feel like I need to tell you that the fact that you also do this in some way is not crazy. Okay. It is um part of your defense or protection, self-protection, for lack of a better word. And I feel like one of those interactions, this dog is going to be significant. And because it's there, the dog helps you identify that you're on the right track with the right person. I don't know what any of that means. Okay. But I will just say this week, be mindful of seeing this dog in some way, because there's something around you seeing this dog. And like I said, it's white and it's fluffy and it's a happy dog. The tail is wagging. So, but there is a connection around the dog. It's a checkpoint. So that's what I have for you, Regina. And I'm going to move on to Theresa, who should also be happy because there's nothing going on in Scorpio right now. There's a lot of craziness going on with the planets, and Scorpio is not involved in that craziness. Probably not a bad thing, you know. Some Scorpios can be pretty intense. So probably not a bad thing. Focus is on the home, which again brings me to spending some time there. Either really, really, really wanting to spend some time there or actually having the opportunity to be able to spend some time there. And I think this has even come up before. So it's a double, I guess we're just going to continue that. It's a time to enjoy spending time at home. I do get an element of worry in the back of your mind about a couple of different things. Could be around family, could be around career, could be both. Honestly, you are kind of carrying the world on your shoulders right now. And I'm being asked to tell you to put the world down for a minute. This could even be a second chance at taking some time for you and really relaxing, because there's a lot of tenseness around you. And you're not going to rest unless you're putting the world down. I know what you're going to say, but I can't do that. Yes, you can. Even if you put it down for 5 minutes at a time. And I'm being told to tell you that you need to visualize putting the world down. I am visualizing that Van Halen album. I think it was 5150. The guy had the world. You just gotta put it down. That's resting. This is coming from an older lady in spirit. She has this really feminine smell. It's almost like a soap, like a perfumed soap smell or powder. It's not perfume. It's like the soap or the powder. She's got the sweetest disposition, just this sweet little face and smile. I want to sit with her and let her feed me cookies. You should sit with her and let her feed you cookies. You don't have diet restrictions when they're spirit cookies. I'm just saying. She's holding up like a toy clown, and she keeps pinching the nose and it's going burr, 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 burr. And she's like, you got to remember to have fun and play. But rest is really important this week. I feel like you are going to regret it if you don't. I'm just saying. And that could mean you're going to be sick. That could mean you don't have much more time to rest before the shit hits the fan. That makes sense. That's what I have for you, Theresa. Moving on to Jillian. I didn't forget again. By the way, I was so excited when you're like, how dare you forget me that one week? Because I was like, you know what? This is actually horrible that I skipped it, but it's gonna test to see if she watches it faithfully, and you do. So, haha. Nothing in Scorpio. Nothing, nothing, nothing. No planets in Scorpio, which is good because, well, there are 4 signs that are not impacted by all the bullshit the planets are doing right now, and Scorpio just happens to be one of those 4 signs. So you're one of the ones that gets to sit back and let everybody else deal with their drama, and you can just stay the fuck out of it. You don't even have to stir the pot, you know? It's kind of nice. Focus is on home. I kind of feel like for you, Kind of have a love-hate relationship with being at home. You don't want to leave it, but you hate being stuck there. And you don't want to leave it because, people, right? But you hate being stuck there. And it feels like it's so extreme from one end to the other. It's just like this constant battle, right? God, you've got to be exhausted. How old are you now? 21, almost 21. It where's you at now? Okay. Think of what that's going to be like in 10 years or 20 years. Okay. It's tiring right now, but it gets more and more and more exhausting. And, you know, it starts to wear a person down in a lot of ways. So I feel like you need to eliminate the struggle. First of all, what would be very helpful, I think, at least it is for me, is I purposely go outside in the sun, even if it's just for a few minutes, fresh air. It does sort of help clean the cobwebs. Even better, because it helps clean the cobwebs more, is to get up and take a walk around the block, whatever, right? Something about walking really helps that. It also gets the oxygen moving through your blood. So if you get high right before the walk, you get really high. Yes, I'm whispering like, no one's gonna hear me, right? Anyways, yeah, it makes it way better. And when you get old and you've been doing it for 30 years, it's really helpful, okay? Because it starts to get much more difficult to get that mojo going. A lot more difficult than it used to be. So there's that really helps you to step out of the extreme of I don't want to leave, but I can't stand being here kind of a thing. The other thing is that I am very similar to that in the fact that I would rather avoid people and just kind of stay in my little cave, but it gets very depressing. So, and I obviously can't run a business like that. So I have talked myself into specific amount of days that are people days and specific amount of days that are just me hiding in the cave days. And by doing that, my hiding in the cave days become a reward for a job well done. And it makes it a lot easier. I feel that I don't know if you're about to hear about a job or there's something about a job going on, specifically communication about a job. Mercury's retrograde ends right at the beginning of this week. So we come in Sunday, it's still retrograde. By Monday morning, it's done. There is a shadow period where things still get a little bit wonky, but I'm just being told to tell you that if you don't get a phone call within 24 hours of the time that you expected to get this call, give them a call back and just check in. I feel like there's a delay somewhere. I don't feel like it's that you didn't get the job, right? But it's worth it for you to make that phone call and to reach out. That's what I have for you, darling. Moving on to Sheri. She's singing the Sherry Bowberry song. Sorry. Pardon me. Anyway, Sagittarius, nothing going on in Sagittarius, which is good. Because there's literally like 4 signs that don't have planet influence, and everybody else is just in this crazy bullshit stuff that's going on, except for Pisces. It seems to be not even affected by the big stuff and just kind of sort of hanging out for the, that's good for them, right? That is good for them. Focus is on those you love. Speaking of Pisces, focus is on those you love this week. Two things. First is don't spread yourself too thin. Just because you can handle everything doesn't mean that you need to offer to do everything. And there are some cases where it's better to let someone else offer to do it. And we'll leave it at that. Number two, your mom says it's okay not to agree. And then she left it at that. So I feel like that means that things may be taking place. You don't agree with it, and that's fine. You have a right to not agree with it. But let it go. For your own sake, you need to let it go, she says. She's also showing me a loaf of bread. It's fresh out of the oven. It's not even sliced up. They said you could feed 4 people with this bread, or you could feed 10 people with this bread. It's up to you. Okay. She's saying the choice is yours. 4 or 10. It doesn't matter what choice you make. I think where she's going with this is that in my experience, you and I are very similar in the fact that in a situation we are organized and logical and can take care of things. But it's not always our job to do. It doesn't matter if you're good at it or not. It's not our job to do. So I think we kind of learned that in the days of the AOD, but maybe sometimes we need to relearn it. She's also showing me something in the mail. Like something that should have been not should have been taken care of, but already was, and it shouldn't even be an issue anymore. It's like something that's coming back to bite you in the ass, and not in a bad way necessarily. It's just like we really have to do this again. Really have to do this again. Um, it kind of reminds me of when you did the unemployment thing like a while ago, and they kept sending something to your parents to fill out like over and over and over again. And you kept filling it out and sending it, right? It seems something like that, but I don't think it is that, because that wouldn't necessarily be relevant right now. That's what I have for you, Sheri. Moving on to Peg. We have nothing going on in Sagittarius this week in terms of planet activity, which is actually kind of a good thing because there's a whole lot of planet activity going on. Better to watch from the sidelines than be pulled into the middle of it, I always say. Focus is on those you love this week. And what I get is, I literally just heard a voice say, when is it focused on me time? You know what? Whenever you want. Okay. The answer to that is whenever you want. Actually, I think that's really a thing for you right now. That focus on you time and what you want and what you need, and self-care. Not that you don't focus on self-care, but um I just feel that there is time coming up this week, and that you shouldn't feel bad about taking that to just figure out where you're at and where you want to go, or just relax. I really feel this week that you need that. Not because you're sick, but it's like you've been go for a while, and now your body is just done. It needs a rest. At least 2 days, I'm told. In my experience, if I don't take that time, I'm forced into it by getting sick or something really annoying that I don't want to deal with. So that's one thing this week. The other thing is, you don't have planets that would bring you into this, but I do feel like it's worth mentioning, because I feel like it's something that you may encounter, but on Wednesday specifically. So this whole week, there's a pretty major challenge between Pluto and Mars, Jupiter and Mercury. Jupiter and Mercury being almost in conjunction with each other, but they're really working together specifically in this challenge. And on Wednesday, the moon just moves right into the middle of those two, and it creates, adds an emotional layer to that challenge. And I'm picking up that on Wednesday specifically, it's almost like you're an innocent bystander of that in some way. Like, you're either dealing with somebody's emotional reaction towards you when you did nothing to warrant that reaction, or something that seems to be directed at you that doesn't make sense as to why. And so I feel like if that starts to come up, it's very important to put your bubble up. And because Mercury is involved in this, Mercury's retrograde is over on Monday, but we're still in the shadow period. But because Mercury is involved in this, it is also really important to make sure that you choose your words wisely, I guess, in terms of choosing to diffuse a situation versus choosing to erupt a situation, if that makes sense, which you being a Sagittarius, it's very easy, can be easy to fall on the eruption. But I don't feel in this case that's going to help you or them or anybody. In fact, you're already not in the middle of this. You want to avoid getting sucked into the middle of this. And I do see that as being an element as well. It's avoid getting sucked into somebody else's mess, somebody else's problem, what have you. So that's what I have for you this week. I'm going to move on to Mama Sheri. No planets in Sagittarius. Focus is on those you love, continues to be on those you love this week. Focus is always on those you love. I get two things. The first thing is when you have somebody on your mind and you want to talk to them, you can call them or text them. I'm hearing you in your head going, I don't want to bother them right now. I don't want to bother them right now. I don't want to bother them right now. Oh my God, stop. I love you, stop. I'm not just talking about me either. I feel this is happening with somebody else. And there doesn't always have to be a reason for it. Your mom just said, not everything is psychic. Sometimes you just want to talk to that person. And you know the difference between what is psychic and what isn't psychic. You always have. She's saying you have got to stop second guessing yourself. It's not you second guessing yourself. And you need to separate what is yours versus what is somebody else, if that makes sense. The other thing that I'm being shown for you this week, I see broken glasses. I don't know why. I don't think I've ever seen you wear glasses before, but I'm seeing these broken glasses and you being really, really, really pissed off about this. This could be a metaphor for sight in terms of spiritual sight. That the glasses you use are broken, but you know it. All it takes is magic to fix them. And if they're real glasses, you can always replace them. Nothing is as big as it seems in the moment. And that's what I have for you, Sheri. Finally, Alyssa, my poor little Pisces right at the end. Okay, so Pisces, it's just really interesting about what's going on in Pisces this week because there's really a lot of challenges. And towards the end of the week, there are challenges for Pisces to a certain extent. But the major challenge is you're kind of sitting there watching everybody else deal with it and eating an ice cream, for the most part. You got your own little things, but, for the most part, it really feels like everybody else around you is just running around like chickens with their heads cut off, if that makes any sense at all. And it's like crazy, and you're like, hello, what's up with this crazy, that kind of stuff happens. So we have a couple of different things to focus on. We're going to start with Saturn. Saturn is focused on relationships. Saturn is all about responsibility. So in many cases, this is about the responsibility that you play in your relationship. So understanding that the relationships that you have had in the past, being honest about the mistakes that you made in the relationship that were destructive to the relationship versus putting it all on the other person, or your responsibility and what you put into the relationship versus not putting any effort into the relationship. It's different things like that. The one challenge that is presented to you this week is the square that Saturn has with the sun and the moon, both of which are focused on career. Now, the sun is in Taurus, the moon is in Gemini. And actually on Friday, this is going to be present as well because the moon is going to be in conjunction with the sun. So we have a new moon on a cusp coming up as well. So in terms of your relationships, your responsibility to your relationships and how that affects your career, that almost always pops up as the needs of the people around you are more important than what you need to do to better your circumstances, specifically around your career, if that makes sense. A good example of that is a friend of my son's who had an opportunity to work with Daniel, but was never available because he was constantly always babysitting his sister's kids. And this is like a 20-year-old kid. Like he should be out on his, at least have a job and, getting to the point where he is out on his own. And he's getting saddled with not just one sister, but two different sisters and all of their kids because he just happens to be there. So they can go to work. That's not okay. This is absolutely not okay. And so it's situations like this where you just don't want to use your responsibility towards your family as an excuse not to pursue something that would be a good idea to pursue, basically. Also, the good news, I should say, is that Saturn is in a grand sextile, which is a very positive and helpful aspect with Venus, which is focused on your support system, of which you have a very big support system, as well as Mercury and Jupiter, which are focused on long-term goals. So you have a business in mind and you know what you want to do, and you have done a few things, steps towards that business. Keep going. Keep going. And don't be afraid of taking a part-time job or something in the interim, because that doesn't mean that you're not being successful in what you're doing. It takes a while, trust me when I say this, it takes a while to build up to that. We also have Neptune in Pisces as well, bringing a whole different focus and no challenges at all. Focus is on finances. We have two different grand sextiles working with these finances here as well. The first one is Neptune's grand sextile with the Sun and Mars. Mars is continuously focused on inner trauma. So it's about anger that we have from the past that is creating these mindsets that are holding us back in terms of our financial goals, and the sun, which is focused on your career. So a couple of things are happening here actually as you are working towards a job or your business or what have you. You're going to come across situations that trigger other situations. Now you can get all scared and go, oh my God, that was an ouchie and I don't want to deal with that again. And then you never pursue your goals, which is not the way to go. You can go, oh my God, I'm triggered. Let me separate what happened then and just focus on what's going on now and continue to be successful. And that's what Mars being focused on that inner trauma is all about. It's saying, stop letting your anger and your preconceived notions due to your anger hold you back from what you want to do. The sun is where you shine, and focused on your career, it says you can do anything if you put your mind to it. It doesn't have to be the thing that you absolutely want to do, but it is a thing. It may just be a thing that you need to do. I've been in this business for 15 years. And I am looking at the need to get a part-time job. That does not mean that I'm not successful in my business. It means that other things have come up that have warranted me actually thinking about doing this, right? And adding that into what I'm currently doing. So bottom line here is that as long as you're continuing to move forward, you're never failing, period. Neptune is also in a grand sextile with the sun and Pluto. And Pluto is focused on your day-to-day schedule in retrograde, which does sort of feel like you have no control over your schedule. Somebody else's schedule is controlling your schedule, which is annoying. However, sometimes things magically disappear off your schedule in order to make room for something really, really cool. I'm just saying, that's what that's all about. So basically, yeah, there's a little bit of a challenge, but not enough for you to sit down and cry about, you know? It's more of a, okay, I just need to get past this hump, and then I need to move on. And it doesn't matter what I do as long as I'm moving in this direction. And that is really what this week is all about. No more worrying about money. No more, where am I supposed to, no more overthinking it. Just say, the universe, this is what I need, and point me in the direction to get it, and get out of your own way, because that's usually the person that's standing in our way is ourselves. So that's what I have for you, darling. And that is what I have for everybody. Thanks for hanging out with the readings for the week. I am Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic, and I will see you guys next week. Make it a great Mercury retrograde free week, everybody.